Good morning, everybody. Perhaps you've driven in or around New York City and you know lots of cars. Well, a big day for car traffic was this date, November 13 in 1927, when the Holland Tunnel opened, named after its chief engineer, connecting New York City to New Jersey. This view of the New York City area from 1890 reminds us that Manhattan is an island, and getting in and out of it involves rivers. So in 1908, the Hudson and Manhattan Railroad did this experimental and bold and awesome tunneling under the Hudson, and it worked. And then a few years later, the Pennsylvania Railroad did a double tunnel a little bit north of that original tunnel. And that not only worked, but it ended or connected to one of the great train stations in the history of our country, Penn Station, pictured here. No longer there. Bits and pieces of it are, and if you go to Madison Square Garden, you can see some of those. So while all this was going on, the Model T came out, 1908. So while there's so much attention on train traffic, the car is going to be that tsunami in the background. And by the time 1913 rolled around, a year before World War I, 20,000 cars a day were using ferries like this to get back and forth between New York City and New Jersey. So this is a big deal. Car traffic already before World War I. So during World War I, New York City was really busy with shipping. Here's a picture of the New York Harbor. And it was so busy that ships were being diverted to other ports. So this was an issue for the business people in Metro New York. 1917 to 1918, a really cold winter froze the Hudson and the other rivers. So the ferry traffic and the barge traffic was ground to a stop. So more talk of tunnels. And in 1919, when the ferry operators went on strike, here you can see all these cars stranded because the ferries weren't running. More talk of tunnels again. So here's where we are today. So the red are the bridges. And if you look at the Hudson River, you notice the bottom two are the Holland Tunnel and the Lincoln Tunnel. So the first bridge in Metro New York on the Hudson is the George Washington Bridge toward the top. And one of the reasons there aren't bridges lower down on the Hudson is because the War Department, today's Defense Department, didn't like the idea of bridges on the lower Hudson because they were afraid warships wouldn't be able to go under those bridges. So this is George Washington Goethals. He supervised the final phase of the building of the Panama Canal, and he drew up a plan for tunnels under the Hudson. And the fellow they hired to actually get the job done was Mr. Holland. That's why it's called the Holland Tunnel. He actually died right before it was finished, but he was one of the great tunnelers in the country. He had had a lot of experience with urban tunneling in New York itself. And the big engineering challenge had to do with ventilation and the width of the roadbed, because trains didn't need a wide roadbed, nor did they need ventilation. So it became clear pretty early on that you needed some machines to really move the air through these tunnels. And they were learning from other auto tunnels in other cities where if they didn't move the air, people really got sick. Here's a photo of one of the towers that has air exchange equipment in it. And this was a real breakthrough for the Holland Tunnel. First tunnel to really do this well. Another thing that strikes us is how straight and true the tunnel was, even as they were using equipment that by our standards seemed sort of antiquated, but boy, they were right on the money. So here's where the Holland Tunnel is. It took a long time to build, so people knew what was going on. As the opening day came, there was tons of excitement. And then on this date, November 13 in 1927, it was open to the public for the first time. What a great photo of all these great old cars lining up to go through the Holland Tunnel. And today it's still there. It takes about 100,000 cars a day, a bit more money, a bit slower, but a crucial part of the auto traffic in and out of Manhattan.